question?
Yeah.
Okay, just a preference. These questions can be a little lengthy, so please don't hesitate to ask me to repeat anything. For your first question, reimbursements are a large component of the tasks that you will do. What are the requirements for a valid receipt? How would you deal with an invalid receipt? And how will you streamline the reimbursement process for your board members?
So I'm really glad I went to that banking meeting today because that question is very much answered through that meeting. For the first question about a proper receipt is required to have the location where you bought it, an itemized list, and a proof of payment, which is like the last 4 digits of your card. And you want to make sure it's clear, readable. If you can't read it, then whoever is going over it can't read it. Also, stuff that doesn't count within that itemized list cannot be alcohol or anything that's not allowed on campus, so we couldn't get reimbursed with that. But like, we wouldn't buy that in the first place, so it doesn't matter. For an invalid receipt, what I would do is first ask them if they can get another copy or go to the store again. I'm sorry if I'm sounding like Vic from last year, but I would ask them to go to the store and try to get that list. If they have, because a lot of places will keep the receipt for up to like a month after, most likely, if not getting like proof of payment through their bank account and then using that said receipt. If it's an online purchase, like through Amazon, they require an invoice because there's a lot of information on Amazon receipts and they want to make sure they have everything laid out. Can you please repeat the last part of the question?
Yeah, the last part of the question is, how will you streamline the reimbursement process for your board members?
Okay, what I found out through the banking meeting is they are open Monday through Friday, and when you turn in a check request from Monday before noon, it'll get processed by that Friday. Unless it's really busy, then it'll be processed the Friday after. If that's the case, if we're running on the mindset of a 2-week budget thing, I would call the office would be my best friend, and I would have them on speed dial to make sure everyone has clear communication about reimbursements. Sometimes reimbursements can be delayed due to the events that we are hosting, so I would also communicate that if that were to happen, so then nobody needs to worry about whether or not they are getting paid back, because you will get paid back. And another thing I wanted to mention is I would have, instead of doing an email request, I would have a form, kind of like our EAS form, where you put all of the information needed, so everything is found in one direct contact, instead of me losing it in emails, because that happens, we're very busy, emails happen, and I want to make sure everyone knows, like, I have the information that's needed.
Thank you. Are you ready for your second question?
Mm-hmm.
The treasurer position is one where most duties lie outside of executive board meetings and general body meetings. How will you provide support to your board members, not only as treasurer, but as a top 5 leader?
Thank you for that question, Vic. What I would want to do to work not just as a treasurer, but as an executive board member is I talked about integrity, and I was talking to Yoshi previously, and he told me how every board has that dip of motivation, and I felt it a lot this year. And what I want to do, even though it may be outlined in the vice chair internals task and duties to motivate our board, what Adam did really strongly as a treasurer was keep that motivation high, and I want to work with our top 5 to make sure we support all of board. Because though we may have our individual positions, top 5 is responsible for the care of the board in total, and not just their individual positions. So I want to continue to support with that. Can you please repeat the question, just the question part?
How will you provide support to your board members, not only as treasurer, but also as a top 5 leader?
I would also, even though we have the student A's, I would also want to be a resource to have a communication and link between, because it's very difficult to come to, it's a year-long position. You are pushing yourself into a year-long position, not knowing what your year could look like. I personally had a really bad fall semester, and that made me lose all motivation for Samahan, so. When going through that hard time, I reached out to top 5, and I got the support I needed. And I want to make sure that these positions, all of the candidates that are here today will also have that support going forward and will not be scared to reach out to talk up. Next question, please.
Thank you. The next question is a hypothetical scenario. Do you need a second?
No, we're good.
Okay. The treasurer will budget for our funding across over 30 events through the academic school year. FG, FACN, banquets, socials, and other board events. How will you manage budgeting for multiple small and large events at the same time, given equal importance? And how will you continue to utilize the newly implemented budget sheets?
I love the budget sheets. They're very organized, and what I really respected about Vic doing this year is having that initial meeting with everyone to understand where each event would need allocation for funds. What I would want to continue doing is checking in on those events continually instead of just having a first initial meeting and then waiting for them to do the fund spending. I want to be able to help them find the affordable items that they need to look for, and if they need help purchasing stuff to help stay within their budget, I would want to be a helping hand in that and be someone who's there progressively. I would also like the communication of our overall budget shared with all of our executive board instead of just within top 5 and treasurer. Because though we don't want you worrying about funds, I would like to have that transparency so we all know where we are as an organization and not have to worry about whether or not our event might be stunted due to the lack of funding or lack of planning. I want to make sure that everyone has that communication and understanding so we're not lost but guided together.
All right, are you ready for your fourth question?
Yes.
Okay. As treasurer, you will also be an enforcer of attendance. How would you make this a priority?
Thank you, Aiden, for that question. That is one that I was low-key waiting for. So, this year, the biggest thing I've noticed is our attendance drops every year. It is something that happens in spring. We all go through burnout. And something I noticed is the one time I decided to miss EBM, or be late to EBM, the mindset that was in my head was, I don't need to be there on time. Nothing's gonna happen. They're not gonna do anything. And I hated that. Because when I walked in, seeing that screen half covered in red because most of our our e-board members did not arrive on time was a painful thing for me because I realized that we did not care anymore. Because these events are held when our executive board works together instead of independently. And if we cannot respect the time of our executive board, we're not respecting the time of our GBMers. So this topic is very important to me in that way. What I would want to do to enforce the meetings is having a conversation. I believe as a board, they should come to an agreement to what they think is logical when you don't attend a meeting. What I believe should happen is the first meeting or first EBM meeting with a new board should consist of, do you think not notifying our admin and our treasurer 24 hours in advance about your absence or lateness should be charged with a $1 to $2 fee, and maintaining that until the end of the semester and year, charging those balances every month so we can hold our board accountable. Because though having a charge at the end of the year might deter people, it also blindsides people. So I think it's important to have that clear communication and agreement within the board through a closed session and roundtable discussing these matters. Thank you.
All right, are you ready for your final question?
Yes.
Okay, this is a hypothetical scenario. An executive board member has overspent after purchasing supplies for which they clearly agreed to the budget. How do you proceed? And what protocols would you implement to prevent this from occurring?
So first, what I would do is, again, during our winter retreat or summer retreat, prefacing the idea that if we are having a direct budget, that is the budget we are following unless you get in contact with the treasurer first. So what I would want to do when doing budget meetings is asking them what exactly they would need and how much they think they believe they need, and then adding an extra 50 because things happen. And with that concept in mind, if somebody were to overcharge and not get in contact with me first, that would lead into a discussion between all of board and decide whether or not, or top 5, it would be a discussion between top 5 to decide whether or not they should be reimbursed. Because they did break protocol, and that would be a discussion between top 5 to make a unanimous agreement of whether or not we should be reimbursing someone who did not follow our rules. And if they did communicate with me first, and I told them they could spend more money, then it wouldn't be a problem. My biggest thing is communication. Like I said in my speech, our board is better when we are not divided by the outlines of our positions, but united through clear communication and purpose. So if we are all going to go into that mindset, I dropped the thing again, we should have that communication. Thank you.